Okay, so welcome to the CS track panel, part 2. We originally planned to start with CSE at 6 o'clock, but we actually had a little mishap. We didn't actually end up having someone for CSE. So if you are here for CSE, I apologize for that. We will have the rest of the tracks, which are, I need to pull up the list really quickly. We will have the rest of the tracks, which are databases and informational systems at 6:20, and algorithms starting at 6:40, program languages starting at 7 o'clock, and then system programming starting at 7 o'clock. So you're welcome to wait for the rest of the tracks if you're interested in them. But right now, we do not have a specific speaker, representative from computational science and engineering. But you are more than welcome to ask me a couple questions in general about computer science, being an upperclassman, because this is my last year. I am in CS, and I am in security and machine learning tracks. I've also taken a few of the classes that are required, that are in the required courses for CSE. So feel free to ask me questions about those. Or I could just go over the classes I've taken for CSE. So give me a thumbs up or say yes in the chat, or just unmute yourself if you want, if you would like me to just talk a little bit about the classes I've taken. Someone's in the chat, let's see. Okay, yeah, sure, I can talk a little bit about the classes. So in computational science and engineering track, there are 5 required courses. The first 3 are, number 1, pick one among 2, math 266 and math 366, which is ordinary differential equations. I've not taken either of those courses. I cannot really say for sure how those classes are like, but I've definitely heard plenty of engineers talking about those classes. So if you would like to find out more about those, you can go to some, maybe find some engineers around you, and I'm sure they have taken either one of those classes, so you can find out more about them. CS 314 is the second one that's required. I don't really know too much about this one. And the third one is CS 381, Introduction to Analysis and Algorithm. If you talk to most upperclassmen, they will say that this is a very important class to take while you're at Purdue here. What it is, it's like an advanced class of 251 if you've taken that. It goes into, it really helps you think, or just it teaches you different approaches to problems you may encounter, like for during an interview. For example, dynamic programming is one of the most classic ways of approaching a difficult problem. So that class is really helpful to take, especially in your third year, probably first semester, when you're looking for an internship, or and also it's not too late, of course, to take it your senior year either, because that would definitely also help with your interviews for full-time also. But the earlier you take it, the more beneficial for sure. So that's like, if you talk to most upperclassmen, like I said, it's one of the most important classes that you should take at Purdue, and it is required for many tracks here at Purdue anyway. So those are the first 3. And then for the last 2, you pick one from, for the fourth one, you pick one from 5 courses, CS 373, CS 473, CS 478, IE 336, ECE 301, You can find information for those. I know right now you can probably not going to remember these numbers anyway, but I will drop the link to this course page in the chat, or if anyone, someone else from Purdue Hackers, please, you can do that for me while I keep talking. But basically, you choose one of those 5 classes as your fourth required class to take. And among those 5, the only one I've taken is CS 373, which is data mining and machine learning. So I've taken that class because I am a machine learning track. So it's a pretty cool class to take. You learn the fundamentals of machine learning and lots of Python projects where you actually, make and train models in practice. Many coding projects, and I think it's a pretty good class to thoroughly teach you the fundamentals of machine learning. So it's a cool class to take. And then for your 5th required course, thank you, Torn. For your 5th required course to take, there is CS, you choose one among 3. The first one is CS 352, then CS 353, and then CS 354. So 352 is compilers. I'm not taking that one, but I've heard, also positive things about it. You learn a lot from it, but also it is a difficult one. I haven't heard much about 353, which is principles of concurrency and parallelism. But I have taken CS 354, which is operating systems. In that class, you are given a skeleton operating system called XINU, XINU. It's actually created by our professor here at Purdue, Professor Comer. Basically, when I took it, we had 5 projects throughout the semester, and for each project, you're basically making modifications to the XINU skeleton they gave you. You're basically implementing different operating systems functionalities on top of the most basic skeleton. So for example, for one project we had to make a task manager or time assignment agent kind of to assign different computational to decide how much computational time to give to each task that is running on your machine in the operating system. So also another really hands-on practical class to take, both theory and also hands-on practice projects. And the language you'll be dealing with is C. So there's the classes that you have to take, required courses, and then also there are electives. Again, just like every other track, your electives are really just based on, they're not really like, not all of them are really related to the track that you're in, more just for your personal interests. So among the electives, they're pretty much, you can just choose whichever you like or it sounds interesting to you. So for me, on the electives, I have taken, let's see, I'm currently taking CS 471, which is Introduction to Artificial Intelligence. I am enjoying it pretty much right now. We are so far right now we're on project 2, and it's pretty similar to project 1, but similar to the operating system class. You're given a skeleton, source code. You're given the source code to work with, and what you're doing is actually making an AI for Pac-Man. So everybody knows how Pac-Man works, and initially the Pac-Man doesn't know what to do, and you're making programs to tell it how to win the game by using different search graphs or different. There are multiple ways to tell your Pac-Man what to do. So that's what your projects will be looking like. Other than that one, that is the only one I've taken among the electives. So there's not much more that I can share, but I hope that was helpful for you. Once again, I apologize for our mishap. We didn't end up with someone for CSE. It was my mistake, but yeah, I hope the information I gave was helpful at least. You're more than welcome to ask more questions, and if not, you're more than welcome to leave, and we will just wait for our next segment, which is at 6:20. The track for, let's see, what's the next one? The next one is at 6:20. We'll be having our databases and info systems talk. Okay. Torn, have you shared on Slack yet? Notified everyone on Slack? Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, we usually do a quick announcement right before the event, but since we didn't find anyone for CSE, we didn't send one. But now we just sent one. Hopefully, more people will be joining just because people might forget. So we'll just wait 5 more minutes to see if people join for databases. And thanks, Torrin, for sharing that in the Slack. We'll wait like maybe 4 more minutes for more people to join.
All right, so we can get started. So our first speaker will be talking about databases and the info systems track. And so our speaker is Shotobhisha Sinha. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that. Please feel free to correct me, or if you have like any nickname or anything. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, so my name is Shotobhisha, but most of my friends just call me Shots. I don't have a drinking problem, in case you were wondering. It's just short for my name. Okay. I'm in the databases and information systems track, and I'm also in the machine intelligence track, and they both like pair pretty well together. Yeah. So should I just like start answering the question?
So yeah, why did you pick this track?
Okay. So I picked my track in my sophomore year when like in the second semester of my sophomore year, I was taking 252 and I had to take a class with it, like another CS class. And I thought the 348 would be pretty easy just because it's like a lower load class and 252 is like more heavy with workload. So I picked 348 and because I took it, I was like, okay, might as well start off with the track and then maybe I'll switch out if I don't like it. But the class was pretty fun. I mean, it was not hard, I guess, is one thing about it. And the reason I stuck with the track is because I thought databases would be pretty useful to have a knowledge of, because no matter what you're doing within CS, you are going to need to use a database or understand how to design a good one, just because as a software engineer, I feel like that's kind of important to know. So yeah, basically I picked the track because the first requirement is kind of easy, and in general, it's like useful information to know how to use a database properly.
Cool. All right. So yeah, moving on to question 2. Yuhao, can you change the slide? All right, cool. So what classes have you taken for this track, and what are the projects and labs like? And also, how much of a commitment is this track?
Okay, so The database track is kind of broad in the sense that there are required courses and then there's three lists of electives. So and you need to pick one class from each of the lists. So that is another thing which I thought would be fun about the track of just like being able to explore like more within the CS department. So the required courses are CS 348, which is information systems, CS 381, which is analysis of algorithms, CS 448, which I'm taking right now, which is about relational databases, and CS 373, which is data mining and machine learning. And then the three lists of electives are you have to pick between OS and compilers, and I did OS. You have to pick between crypto and security, and I did crypto. And for the free elective, I did 471 because of like my other track, and it kind of meshed well with that because it's a requirement for that one, and it's an elective here.
Right.
So all the classes are pretty like different, I guess. They're not very similar just because there's the three different lists and each of them are kind of different from each other. So 348, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of like a light class. And if you're taking like a harder class of that semester, it's like a fun one to do just because it's very low effort. I think it's like pretty good to do with 252 just because like shell and stuff is really hard. 381 is like 251, but like way harder. But um, but it's an important class, and you learn a lot of things through it. There weren't any labs or projects for it, but there were homeworks, and the homeworks are pretty intense. Like although there'll be like 4 or 5 questions, each question you'd probably spend like hours just figuring out what algorithm you need to use, and also analyzing how long that would take. The exams are also pretty bad, but the good thing about it, and I guess about like a lot of CS classes, is that everyone's also doing just as badly as you are, so the curve is good. 448 is I'm taking it right now, and it's been okay, but it's kind of disorganized. But I feel like that's just the professor I'm taking it with. Um, but it's interesting in the sense that you're in 348 is more about using databases and 448 is about designing them. So it's different, but it's also interesting to learn how things work and the considerations you need to take while designing a database. Just you need to be mindful of how many people are using it. So you need to fix a lot of issues and make sure it's like fast. So a lot of the courses are just dealing with how to make things more efficient, which is something I didn't expect, but it's something important to know, I guess. 373 is data mining and machine learning, and that one it was a lot of work. We had, I think, 5 projects, and each of them was implementing our own machine learning model. So we implemented I forgot all of them, but okay, the naive Bayes algorithm, decision trees, and I think a few more. So we had to code in Python and start from scratch and design the whole model and make sure it runs on like the test data set that we did. And there was also a lot of analysis and a lot of like numbers. So if you like math, it's a good class. OS, Yuhao kind of covered that when he was talking, but it's very like hands-on and modifying Xenu, and you learn a lot about just how computers function, I guess. The labs were they weren't hard, but they were like you need to familiarize yourself with the source code in order to make any modifications and not break everything. Um, Crypto is very theoretical, and it's like a lot of numbers and a lot of understanding what to do with the numbers. I took it with Wagstaff, who has his own number, which is kind of cool, but the homeworks in that were not very hard, but and the projects and lab assignments in that also weren't very hard. But I've heard that different professors do make more like difficult assignments that are more like you need to really understand like how to code, I guess. And then in the professor I took it with, you just needed to like take 180 and you'd be fine because all of our assignments are in Java. The exam though was 40% of our grade, so that was kind of annoying. But Yeah, overall that was also not so bad. And 471 again, like you have just covered it, but it's the whole class is just like you're given current code and you have to keep modifying it to make sure your Pac-Man wins. And it comes with like a fun GUI, so like whenever you run it to test it, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
It's about all the classes I've taken.
All right, fun. All right, so moving on to question 3. So yeah, so what was something you wish you would have known before you entered this track? And do you have any tips for succeeding in this particular track?
So I guess like in general, I wish something I would have been more mindful of is just to like start assignments early. It's like, I mean, everyone says it, but like you don't really do it. Um, so that would be useful just for like any CS class, I guess, because the labs are kind of hard, or like you need to have a firm understanding of what you're doing before you do it. So just starting early and getting help as and when you need it would be like the biggest tip for succeeding in just CS, I guess. And then in this track in particular, I'd say like one tip would just be to like, since it is quite broad and there is a lot of electives, to instead of thinking of how it would so I mean I'm doing 2 tracks, so my electives would I chose my electives based on how it would pair with my other track. So I guess one tip would just be, since there are a lot of options for electives, just like go crazy and do whatever you want, or like a class that you actually like care about more, or like are more interested in learning about.
Right. All right, cool. Moving on to question 4 then. So yeah, what opportunities has this track or open for you, or what opportunities will it open for you?
So in my sophomore year is when I declared my track, and that was when I got my first internship. I interned at Dell, and I interned in their data storage platform, and that I was placed in that based primarily on my track. And so that was a cool opportunity that they. It's cool that Purdue does the tracks just so that recruiters and employers can see, do you have a specific interest, and place you within one of those things when you want to work. So that was a really cool internship, and I'm grateful that I got to do it, and I'm grateful that they placed me based on my track, because I learned a lot, and it was cool to see how like the stuff you learn in classes are like applied in real life. Um, I also did like research at Purdue with a professor in databases as well, and that was pretty interesting, and it was good to like get some research experience. In the future, I feel like some opportunities that the track could open up for anyone would just be having an understanding of databases is pretty important as a software engineer, just because you are going to be interacting with databases for logs, or for to just store data, for analyzing data. So it gives you a lot of, and since the track is kind of broad in the sense of like you do a security class and you do like a computing class as well, um, you have like a pretty broad understanding of computer science. So whatever, it helps you first like figure out what you want to do in the future, I guess. Like, so if you really like the crypto class, you could go more into security. If you really like the OS class, you could go more into systems. So it helps in that as well. And I feel like it gives you like a lot of the required skills you need at like a software engineering role.
All right, perfect. So yeah, moving on to question 5. Why should I enroll in this track?
Yeah, so I guess like I already said it, but since there's so many, since it's so broad in its requirements, you get a pretty firm understanding of like what kind of classes you can do here, and what um, so when so you kind of can explore more like different areas of CS while just being in one track. And I guess like the way the tracks are restrictive is that you might not be able to explore other tracks, but this track isn't like that, just because the requirements require you to do classes which are like the required classes of other tracks. And another reason you should do this track, which is kind of linking back to my previous point, is that it does pair well with a lot of different tracks. So if you do want to do multiple, you might, this is pretty helpful in figuring out if you want to do like security or systems or machine learning as well.
Right. Fun. All right. So I believe now we are opening up to the audience if they have any questions. So yeah, you can either unmute and share your questions, or you can just type them in the chat. All right, so we have one question saying, which class was your favorite?
My favorite was probably OS. Oh, yeah. My room is really dark, I'm sorry, but my favorite class is probably OS just because it was pretty hands-on, and I really liked the professor, and I really liked how the projects and labs were structured, and like the making, since we were like modifying Xeno, it was pretty cool to just like see how your changes directly affect how the operating system was running. So that was pretty cool.
I think I actually have a question for you myself. So before you mentioned that you have an option to take between like iOS and something else, and crypto and something else. So why did you choose both of those?
Okay, so I'll be honest, I picked OS over compilers just because I thought it'd be easier to like and between crypto and computer security, I believe the other one is called. I just thought crypto sounded cooler, and I was interested in learning more. So that's like, since the option was there, I was just like, why not?
Makes sense. So since this track is like pretty easy to like merge with other tracks, how many students are currently taking the databases and info systems track? If you have like a rough estimate.
I'm not sure. I don't think it's a very popular track just because most of my friends like aren't in it, or like most of the people I know aren't in it. But I do know some people who kind of realized midway that since there's so many electives in it, it's hard. It's easy for them to just add it on by just taking an extra class. So I know a lot of people do that probably like into their junior year, like they just add the database track by taking like one extra class. I'm not sure how many students are actually enrolled in it, but yeah, and all the classes are pretty general in most of the CS classes. So, I mean, you're probably classmates with all people in most, like all different tracks from you anyway. I'm sorry, I don't know that.
No worries, no worries. And have you found like the resources for this track to be pretty like helpful? Like, do you think that, like in other words, do you feel as though, yeah, you're able to get like any sort of help you need by doing this track and whatnot?
Yeah, I feel like for most of the CS classes, the TAs and stuff are very helpful, and it's the same with this track as well. And most of the class sizes are kind of big, so maybe the professor will not like directly be the first person you contact, but I found that most of my TAs and even like classmates are pretty helpful in this track and like all the classes I took for it. Yeah.
All right.
The other resources, I guess, yeah, I don't know. I guess just like the course website stuff.
Any final questions from any of the audience members before we move on?
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for presenting. I certainly learned a lot about this track. I did not, I'll admit, I did not know too much about the databases and information systems track, but this was actually pretty helpful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
And
Thank you.
yeah, I guess we can just, I don't know, wait a few seconds for before we begin the next track. But yeah.
Hey, Rohan, did you have to leave at 6:40?
Yeah, I do. So yeah, I think Yuhao will be taking over
Yeah,
the reins of the question asking.
yeah, sounds good. Thank you for, being here for the first half. Well,
Yeah, no problem.
uh,
All right.
okay, so um, our next speaker will be, let's see, should be Zoe.
Zoe.
All right, hey Zoe, thanks for making it. So yeah, feel free to first introduce yourself, and then we can start asking you the questions.
All right. I'm Zoe. I'm a junior. I'm also a math minor and EAPS minor that I'm working towards. I'm also in the Honors College. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So why did you pick this track, Foundations in CS?
Basically, I wanted a wide range of things I could look into, and I really like theory. I had really liked 251 when I was picking courses for my spring semester sophomore year. I was like, 381, it fits in everything, and I loved the class. Really taught me I like the more theoretical side of CS. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, 381 is definitely a good one. Okay, so what classes have you taken for this track, and what are projects and labs like, and how much commitment is the track?
okay, so I took 3D1. Homeworks were a bit rough. They do take a lot of time. And the midterm and final were a lot towards the grade. But it's really important. It's pretty simple once you get the hang of the algorithms. They can take a while to get your head around. There isn't any programming, which I mean, I kind of like because I like the theory side. But it's it's definitely continuation on 251. For personal reasons, I haven't really done a lot of labs and compilers. I've kind of had to retake it. So I have two different kind of teaching styles that I've seen. One of them focuses a lot more on the nitty gritty of how you do things. The other shows more, I wouldn't say high level, but kind of backs off like the individual process of like some of the processes when making compilers. The labs were a little bit different too. Some were, we're going to give you a long amount of time to do this. Others were, you have a week, you're going to do it a certain way. The first time I took the class, we were working in a lot of different languages. We had some machine codes, some C. The second time, the teacher said only C++. So it varies a lot. I'm also in 483 this semester. It's like continuation on 381, Intro to Theory of Computation. So this one, it's almost like going into more of the theory on compilers, actually. We've been working a lot with DFAs, finite automata, and learning a lot of the nitty gritty details behind the basics you learn. And it's a lot of proof based, so that was good. Yeah.
I know there was another level for 381.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, there is. It also doesn't have any coding, and the homeworks are pretty simple. Similar to 381. Haven't had a midterm yet, but I imagine it's going to be pretty similar.
Just out of curiosity, was that is it like harder than 381, or because 381 was definitely a difficult class to take? It wasn't like too much work.
Easier?
Easier?
Yeah, so the teacher I have goes through everything really well so that it makes sense. And the homework was pretty similar to examples we've done in class. It's just a little bit of reworking, digging a little deeper into the material. So it's been pretty good. She's a lot more talkative, like wanting people to speak up during class. It's a very small class. There's like 20 of us or something. So.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, and we'll go on to the next one. What was something you wish you would have known before you entered the track? Any tips for succeeding?
So I know this track works well with other tracks, but I kind of wish I'd like know more people in the track, just because like there's, how do I explain it? Some classes you need like someone to help you through it, and I feel like that would have helped like know more people. It's not a very popular track, but the classes aren't exactly ones that are like are specific to the track. It's most of them you can find, actually pretty much all of them you can find within other tracks. So it's not like there's anything specific you're trying to look for. One of the things I would mention, be prepared for a lot of theory. You're not doing a lot of coding. If you like coding, this is probably not the track for you. But it's, if you really get into it, it's pretty good. A lot of these classes don't have a lot of assignments, so you have to keep on top of them. Make sure you work on them. Don't miss any. Something I noticed. Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful. Question 4, what opportunities did the track open for you?
So this track has been advertised a lot for being good for getting into graduate school. Personally, I'm not sure I'm going to be going into graduate school, which means it doesn't really line up with what I plan on doing later in life. Not that I know what I'm doing later in life. I've applied for different internships, but more what's happened is I've gone elsewhere for a job, so it's not specifically the track that's helped me get places. But if you do well in the track and you have a good GPA, it will be really helpful for grad school.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, especially if you're going to research, right, for grad school. Okay, so why should I enroll in this track?
So I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there's no class that's specific to this track. So it's really good for merging with other classes, other tracks. The main, so like for the required classes, like you have compilers or operating systems for one of them. You have data mining or artificial intelligence, and then you have introduction to analysis. Most of those you're going to find you're going to need one or a few of them in other tracks, and then you just have a giant list of electives you choose for the rest of your classes. So you can really easily align that with different tracks. So it's really easy if you want to pile it on top of another one. Yeah.
That makes sense. Just like the math minor for a lot of CS majors.
Yeah.
You just take one extra class and you're there. So
That's why I'm doing it.
yeah, I don't know a single person that doesn't do it. I feel like most people do that. Like the other popular minor is like management or something. That's one that doesn't have any classes that are in common. But yeah, I dropped that one real quick. Okay. So question 6, questions from the audience. So we have Torn, who just joined. Hi Torn. We just got to the question 6. You're more than welcome to ask some questions, or Prakrit. Yeah. Okay, so Torrin just tuned in. So he asked, what's the main focus of the track?
So a lot of these classes are not coding based, they're more theory based. Like 3D1, a lot of people take that. It's mostly algorithms, learning how they work, learning what they're useful for. There are going to be a lot of classes that are similar to that, where you really want to focus on the theory behind it. That's why it's really good for if you want to go further in schooling. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, if no one has any questions, like the 20 minutes is really just allotted just so that we have plenty of time. But if we end early, that's totally okay too. So thank you so much, Zoe, for joining us today. It's midterm week also, so definitely
Yeah,
hope you
I
good
think
luck with
there's
those.
midterm Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, someone Torn asked another question. What are the main career opportunities with this type of study? So yeah, we went over that already, but if you don't mind sharing that
Yeah.
again.
So most people advertising this track will advertise going to grad school, good for research. With a career, I guess one of the good things about this track is that you get a lot of variety, but more theory based variety. So you have like cryptography, programming languages, numerical methods, concurrency and parallelism, computer graphics. So like you get a little bit of a lot of stuff, but more on the theory side of it. So it kind of can go anywhere, but they do try to gear this track towards the people who want to go further in schooling.
Okay. Okay, we can call that then. Thank you for sharing with us. Yeah, definitely good luck on your midterms. I know I'm gonna have a couple to study for soon too. So yeah, thank you. All right. So our next one will be at 7 o'clock, and it will be Prakrit. And we can just start then. All right, 7 o'clock. We can go ahead and start our 7 o'clock session for programming language track. Yeah, so our speaker today will be Prakrit, and we can just start with an introduction.
Hello, my name is Prakrit. I'm a junior in programming languages track and as well as foundations. Yeah.
All right, thanks for joining us. So first question is, why did you pick this track?
It's in my field of interest. The classes that I want to take in this field happens to coincide with the requirements of the PL track, and that's the primary reason why I picked the track. And I think ultimately the goal of PL is to help programmers write better programs. And I want to write a good program, like studying about programming methodology, what are the principles of writing a good program, how to write programs that are fast, that are efficient, that are a joy to look at, and most of all, that are correct. And in PL, you're going to be learning about how to verify programs if it is correct or not. If it is not correct, how do you repair programs so that it becomes correct? And given a set of specifications, how do you construct a program that satisfies all of those specifications? And all of these are the topics that I am interested in learning more about. So that's the main reason I picked the track.
All right, thank you. Next question, what classes have you taken for this track, and what are projects and labs like, and how much commitment is this track?
The classes that are the requirements for the tracks that I've taken are CS 352 compilers, 381 algorithms, and in this semester I'm also taking 354 OS, 483 theory of computation, and I'm supposed to be taking 456 programming languages, which is the star class of the track, but somehow the class got canceled this sem. So I'm taking CS 560, which is reasoning about programs instead. And most of these classes are theory-based, as Zoe has said, but I would say the workload for each class varies. 483 theory of computation is kind of lighter than I expected. CS 381 algorithms is okay. I mean, it's not as hard as a lot of people make it out to be, but it's not easy either. So you have to be practicing a lot of that, and you have to be, getting a hang of the algorithms to be able to do your best in the homework and in the exams. 354, which I'm taking right now, OS, is not that bad. And honestly, the labs are pretty easy at the moment. I'm not sure. I think it might change later, but right now it's okay. CS 560, which is a grad level class that I'm taking, is research based, so it is. It takes a little bit more time than I expected because you have to be reading papers and there's a lot of things that you need to do. The homework is also requires quite a bit of thinking. But yeah, I'll say the class that takes the most time, that is the most time consuming of all, is CS 352, which is compilers. I took it last semester and it is one of the most depressing semester I've had. I was working on the project all day and all night. I'm not sure if it is because I got a relatively bad professor, but in hindsight, even if I have a different professor, I think I'll still be struggling in a class because compilers is hard. I'd say it's relatively hard. And if there's something I should have known before taking 352 is to learn more on the theories of how things work, or the theories behind compilers, really, because compilers, at least at undergrad level, you're just given a set of instructions. Like you're just given this theory, and the teacher will just say, hey, this theory works, so just follow it. But you don't really get the insight of why it works or how it works. If possible, I would want to take 483, which is theory of computation, before taking 352, because a lot of the theories in 352 comes directly from theory of computation. Things like things like automatons or context-free grammars, context-free languages. Those are the main topics that you're going to be struggling with at the beginning of 352 that you'll have no idea about. You touch a bit on that in 252 when you're doing your shell project, but you won't really understand it that much. And to be honest, I still don't really understand it in 352 until I take 483. So it helps to know the theory behind things before you actually get to doing those hands-on.
All right, fantastic. So I guess that kind of ties into the next question also. What was something you wish you would have known before entering the track? Any tips for succeeding?
Beside taking 483 before 352 if possible, then actually on that point is a fair point, because I don't think 483 is offered in 3 or 4 years since I've been here, and this is the first time I've seen it offered. So I'm glad I've been able to take it. And something I wish I've known is also maybe not listening too much to your advisor, because when I was in my sophomore year, first semester, I was going to take 252 because I took 250 and 251 in the summer. And so I wanted to take 252 with 381 together. And my advisor said, don't do it. You're gonna suffer. But I think it's totally doable. I still caution against taking 381 with 352 though, because 352 is something that you'll really be spending a lot of time with. And my advisor likes to call 352 a full-time job in 3 credit hours. So unless you have a light workload, don't take 352 with 381 together. But I think taking 252 systems programming with 381 is totally doable, because you may have to suffer like for a week or two during the midterm season or the period where your projects, where your labs are due. But beside that, I think the workload really, it is manageable. And one of the things I don't like about Purdue CS is that the curriculum, at least at the beginning, is relatively slow, right? You start out your first semester purely with CS 180, and then your second semester, you take your 240 and discrete math, and only on your second year did you begin to learn about data structures and algorithms and the like, which should have been taught a semester earlier. I think 182 should have been taught a semester earlier, and there's no reason why it needs to be in the second semester. And because of this, by the time that you have the freedom to take the classes that you want to take, that is after 252, is already your junior year, and you have 2 years left, which is 4 semesters, which is not a lot of time to explore the classes that'll interest you. And there begins the dilemma that I'm sure a lot of you have comes your second year, and I certainly did have, which is should I or should I not take 252 and 381 together? And most advisors will say don't do it, but my advice is just go for it. You're not going to die. But of course, don't listen to me too much, because you know yourself and you know your own capabilities. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, if I could have taken 381 earlier, definitely would have been helpful. Even like maybe it could have helped with finding an internship.
There's a lot of classes that have these 2 classes, 252 and 381 as the prerequisite. And if you mentioned earlier, 381 is pretty important and it's pretty helpful. So
Yeah.
the earlier you take it, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Still like, of course, more difficult than others, but definitely manageable, like you said. Okay. Next question. What opportunities did the track open for you?
Not much, I would say. Technically, a track is a bunch of classes. It's only a set of requirements that you have to tick to graduate. You might argue that those set of requirements are there to give you a solid background on your future career, but I would say what you'll need in your job, you're gonna learn them on the fly anyway. So don't worry too much about your tracks. Just take the classes that interest you and pick a track based on that. And for me personally, my classes align with PL and with foundations, and maybe systems and security. So I declared PL and foundations, and I think if I'm not sick of classes yet, I might declare systems and security too, but that's a topic for another time. But yeah, this track, I'll say you'll do a lot of things because it's like foundations where there's a lot of theoretical classes that you'll have to do, with the exceptions of compilers, where there's a lot of labs, but is more geared toward research than industry, because PL is an active area in research, and there's a lot of interest being put into it right now. It is good if you want to go into grad school. I don't know if I want to go into grad school, but I think it's good if you want to go into grad school. And I think it's good to take this track if you want to learn more about this area, about how to write better programs, I guess. But beside that, not much really. It'll tell you how to write better programs, really. How compilers, I mean, how to be methodical, how to have principles when writing code, but not much more than that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say, as a CS major, there's 3 quintessential classes in CS that every CS major should take. First is algorithms, second is compilers, and third is OS. All three of these is covered as a requirement or an elective in PL. So, so you'll be covered.
Okay, and that you always look forward to you always answer the next question, because I'm gonna ask, why should I enroll in this track? But you just gave a pretty good reason. But yeah,
run away.
Why should I enroll in this track?
Pick this track if you're interested in building better programs, and if you wanna, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, basically, pick this track if you're interested in learning more about PL as a field in general. It's pretty new too. It's not very new, but I think it is not a common name you hear a lot. So if you're interested in learning more about these, taking this track will help. It'll give you a solid background in understanding and reasoning about programs. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And also, like you said, just it covers 3 of the pretty good, important classes. Like, I think that's another great way to pick what track you want. Is just look over every class under, like, all the classes under each track, and see which ones are, interest you the most. And if there's one class in one track that might not be covered in the track that you want to go into, you can always just pick up that track also. Like, you don't have to like strictly take classes only from your track either. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. Now we're going to open up to our audience, and we already have a question from Torn. Would you say good understanding in CS252 would correspond to better success in compilers?
I'll say yes, especially the shell project. Definitely, because in 252, the first thing you're going to be doing is building your own compilers. And at least in my class, we use Lex and Yak. And I think in other classes, other professors might use other tools, but I use Lex and Yak, and that is definitely like directly transferable from 252. I understand how it worked. I don't really understand the nitty-gritty details of it, but in compilers, you kind of have to. So definitely we're gonna be taking 352, brush up on your 252, and then also brush up on your assembly in 250, because you're gonna be using it for compiler optimization in 252. Yes.
Got a good assembly. Good question. Great question.
Ooh. So Arvin says he's starting the shell project right now. I'll say good luck. Just divide your time and do things early.
Yeah, have fun with pipes. That was a fun project though. I liked it. I mean, definitely took a lot of time, but yeah, pipes.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah.
But beside that, I absolutely hate labs.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I don't love practical classes.
And that's why you're in PL.
Maybe.
Okay. We have about 5 minutes left until the end of the session. Like always, Torrin said, gotta love when the shell project starts during midterm week. Yeah, I feel that pain. Feel that pain. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, we can end the session early and we can just wait till 7:20 for our next session with our speaker, Will Tyler. But we can give it maybe 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds, see if anyone has any questions. Okay, that seems like it. Thank you so much, man. It was nice seeing you again. Been a while.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, this whole thing will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. So of course, right now, we might not have too many people in the chat in the meeting, but this is midterm week, and it's totally understandable that people can't make it to something like this. Even a lot of people from our own team are busy. So good thing that we can upload this to YouTube so that people can watch this later again. So thank you so much again. We can wait until 7:20 to start our next session. Okay, so it's 7:20. We can start heading into our last session of the day, 7:20 session, systems programming. Our speaker is Will Tyler. Long time no see. We used to live right across from each other.
Hi, Yuhao. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, man. So yeah, you can introduce yourself a little bit, and then we can head into question one.
I'm a senior in computer science. I also major in math, so I really like doing math as well. I've done 2 internships so far. I interned at a company called Springbuck in Indy, and then the next summer I interned for Amazon virtually due to the pandemic. And then after I graduate, I plan on working for Amazon in Arizona. And I'm in systems programming. I'm also in security.
Ah, very nice. All right. So why did you pick this track?
So what got me interested in the systems programming class was I was just fascinated with some of the different systems that we see in computer science. So like operating systems, compilers, networks. And I knew that I had to learn how each of those worked. And so when I saw that there was this systems programming track, I knew that I had to pick that. And also I wanted to not only know about those existing systems, but I hope to learn how to design new systems to solve new problems.
Very cool. So what classes have you taken for this track, and what are projects labs like, and how much commitment is to track?
So the 3 courses that are required for this track are compilers, operating systems, and networks. So the first one I took was operating systems. For the projects in the lab, each of them examine like a different part of the operating system. So there's the scheduler, the process scheduler. So we would have a lab to experiment with that. And the commitment for operating systems, for me, I found it wasn't that bad. I don't remember ever staying up late to work on operating systems. So I thought it was a reasonable commitment. And then next I took compilers. Compilers is kind of notorious for being a more difficult course. I thought it was a fair amount of work. For the projects in compilers, you basically gradually build a more sophisticated compiler over the course of the semester through the projects. So it's really neat to watch how you learn how to implement more advanced features in the compiler over time. And then the third required course is networks. I'm taking that right now. So far, it's one of the lighter courses that I've taken for this track. And based on what I know from my friends, it's usually not too challenging for most students. And then my selective classes, I took 307 software engineering. That class actually, it kind of has a reputation for being a light introduction to software engineering, but I ended up doing a ton of work for that class, probably more than any other class. I pulled at least one all-nighter working on that class, which was something that I didn't expect. So that would be one thing I'd mention. You won't always get what you expect with courses. Like sometimes people will tell you this one's hard and it's not that hard. Other times they say it's easy, but you're doing all-nighters for it. And then, okay, so I took CS 307 software engineering. I took CS 426 security. I think security goes hand in hand with systems programming, because when you're designing your system, you have to keep in mind security and design your system so that it meets its security objectives. And then I took CS 580, which is the grad course for algorithms. And I don't think that algorithms is necessary for systems programming, but I just think it's a great class for anyone in CS to take.
Okay, very good points. Question 3. What was something you wish you would have known before entering the track? Any tips for succeeding?
Before I started this track, I heard a lot of horror stories about some of the different courses that are required. I mainly OS and networks. No, sorry, not networks. OS and compilers. I heard a lot of horror stories about those two classes. So before I entered the track, I wish I would have known that it wasn't that bad. And part of the reason that it wasn't that bad is because of the tips that I'm about to mention. First tip, I would probably say it's probably a good idea to write down when your projects are due in like a planner or something, so that you have some vision of the time that you have to work on the project, because you're probably not going to be able to do it in one day. And so it's a good idea to write down the due dates and have that in your head and then get started on it early. And also I would split up the work over a few days, because oftentimes when you're working in one session, your brain starts to get tired. And so oftentimes you'll be thinking about just one little problem that you have, and you'll be thinking about it forever. And then the next day, when you get back to it, you figure it out in 5 minutes, because what you really needed was a break. So I recommend starting early and splitting up the time when you can.
Yeah, it happens all the time, especially like it gets really late and you're stuck on a problem that you can't resolve. Go to bed, you get some break in the middle of your sleep. You're like, wait a minute, I got it. So you just leap out of your bed and just finish the assignment. Yeah,
in the shower too.
In the shower. Yeah. Your brain is weird. Your brain works in a weird way. But yeah, breaks are pretty important. Yeah. Okay. Next question. What opportunities did the track open for you?
So in terms of job opportunities, I wouldn't say it's like you're gonna take this this track and then Microsoft's gonna email you because of it. From what I've seen, most employers aren't super interested in what your track is. So I would say the main opportunity that it opens for you is like intellectual opportunities, because once you've seen how an operating system is made, and then you see how a compiler is made, and then you see how the internet works, you start learning about how systems are designed. And one thing that I would definitely say is that when you look at systems from an outsider perspective, they might seem extremely complex. But once you get into the details, there's always there's always something simple about this system. Like for example, in operating systems, we learned about how the process scheduler, and like the process scheduler seems complex at first, but as you take the course, you learn that it's just following really simple rules and to operate. So yeah, what I'm saying is once you've taken these courses, it'll give you a new way of thinking, and that was probably the biggest opportunity that I got out of it.
Yeah, definitely very great points. Okay. Last question for Q&A. Why should I enroll in this track?
So my recommendation for this is that I wouldn't tell everyone, just like I wouldn't go running down the hall screaming everyone should take systems programming. But I would say if you are interested in the internet and compilers and operating systems, that's a good sign that you should take this track. And then the other sign is that you should have to take CS 252, I think, systems programming as part of your CS requirements. So if you take that course and you're like, wow, maybe Shell was hard, but I'm really glad I learned it, then this track is probably perfect for you. I'd say the main thing is like you have to be passionate and interested in it, and then it's not that bad. It definitely wasn't bad for me, and but like if you're doing it because your parents think it's the right track for you, that's probably not a good reason. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Okay, this might be a really dumb analogy, but when I was thinking about this earlier, I was like, it's kind of, so a lot of people when they get tattoos, they're like, it kind of hurt, but I wanted it, so it really didn't hurt at all. So I would say it can be like this, like that, because like there's some work you have to do for compilers and operating systems and networks, but like if you're interested, it doesn't feel like work really. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great, yeah. I was just thinking an altered version of Will Tyler in the future, raising his kid, and it's like, hey son, you're gonna grow up and you're gonna enroll in the system programming track at Purdue University. That's what I want you to be. I was just picturing that. I was chuckling to myself. Okay. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that, Will. That was definitely very informative. Now we can, answer some questions from the audience. Oh, seems like we might have something already. So Torin asked, if I plan on taking the SWE track, software engineering, would you still recommend taking compilers, OS, networks? Also, can you remind me which course numbers those were?
Yeah. So the first question, so I'll try to generalize it. So if you're not taking the systems programming track, but you're thinking about taking some of the courses, so I would check to make sure that it's a selective requirement for whatever track you are taking, so that you can use it as a selective requirement. But even if it's not necessarily a selective requirement, if you feel if you're interested in those topics, I think all three of the courses are great introductions to the topic. And so I'd say if you're interested, do it for sure. And then the course numbers. So compilers, I believe, is 352.
You sent it to me.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm typing this out. CS 352. And then operating systems is CS 354. Networks is CS 422.
Great question. Thank you for that question. Let's see how much time we have left. We have about 3 minutes. Can wait a couple more seconds. If no one has any questions, then we can wrap it up. Okay, got another one. What was your favorite project you've worked on in coursework?
In all my coursework, well, so earlier I was kind of I mentioned how CS 307, I spent a couple all-nighters. For that class, me and my team and we were making an app that allows you to transfer music from one service to another. So like if you have Apple Music and you have a library on there and all of a sudden you decide I want to change to Spotify, you could use our app to copy your library over to Spotify. And so even though I spent a lot of painful all-nighters on that project, it was really rewarding. And then especially because it was like a personal idea. It wasn't assigned by the course.
That's very cool. Is the app still up and running? Maybe we could,
No.
you could, oh, it's not anymore?
We, legally, it's not very sound. There's other apps like that on the App Store though.
Okay.
But like we looked into the API like terms of use, and it just didn't seem like you were supposed to be doing something like that.
Yeah, there are so many cool projects out there that just can't be up because of legal issues. And
Yeah.
like, we're programmers. What do we know? Usually when we start,
We're not lawyers.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly. We have a great idea, we make it, then we find out that it's not legal. So
yeah. I
okay.
do want to mention some of the cool projects in each of the courses for systems programming. For operating systems, so like in CS 252 for the shell project, you use pipes, but in OS, the final project was to implement the pipe functionality
No.
in for the shell. So I thought that was neat. For compilers, each project in compilers is kind of similar because you're building a compiler. I can't remember it too well, but I like the ones at the beginning because at the beginning I was really going from knowing nothing to, wow, my compiler just emitted some assembly. So it was really cool at the beginning for sure.
Okay, then I guess we can wrap it up then. Thank you so much, Will, for joining us today and sharing all your experiences and knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was definitely a pleasure having you. Yeah, once again, this will be uploaded on YouTube. So yeah, we'll that will be it. Great session, everyone. And
Awesome.
now we will stop.